Hey, it's Frank here with Frank's DIY and Homeowners Help. And what we're going to do today is we're going to hang a couple of double closet doors for this downstairs closet that I framed out. Now the frame out is in another video. And to be honest, I've got some pretty limited experience doing this. But I know the basics, and I'm going to show you that if you know the basics, you got the right tools and you got a bit of patience, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So here are the doors here. They're kind of semi-pre-hung, right? So all that's hung to start with are the jambs on the sides of the doors. And then you gotta hook the header onto it before you put it up, and then the door stop on the top is not attached either. You've got to do that. So I'm going to start by moving the doors in a better working position, and I will then remove the doors from the jambs, and I will nail the top plate there, the top jamb, onto the sides, and install that first, get that all square and plumb, and then install the doors. And it's not easy. I think I'm a little tight actually on my space right here on this side, but it should give me enough space. You want to have enough room to be able to shim and level and square everything off. Let's see how it goes. And thanks for joining me. Alright, well that's good enough for now. Now I'm just going to pull the hinges here and move the frame into position. Well, the easiest way to pop these hinges is just to get something, even a nail or something. This is a countersink tool. Just get it underneath or inside the bottom. Give it a little poke up. And that should be enough just to pop them out. Okay, so here's the first moment of truth. I'm going to walk the frame over to the rough end. And I'm not too concerned about the side to side. I know that dimension is good. The top dimension might be a little tight on this side. And that is because I just didn't do a good job of measuring that side. And but I'm hoping that with the compression of the carpet, this should be able to fit under there. And if not, then we'll fix it. Here we go. Alright, so that is a fantastic fit. That is the first moment of truth, which turned out pretty well. It fits quite nicely. There's some good amount of play side to side, and there's a little bit of play up and down, so that we can shim this up and make this all square and fit nicely. Okay, so the theory here is simple, and that is that you square up any one of the vertical jambs first. You make it vertical, you make sure it's nice and plumb, perfectly plumb, and then you square the top, and then you go to the other side and you do the exact same. And in theory, that should mean that your doors end up perfect. I don't expect it to work that way. Things never work that way. First off, basement floors are not level, and this one is no exception. We're about a ½ inch out from one side of the door to the other. So that means one side is going to have to come up or the other side is going to have to come down. And that could be a problem here because I don't have too much vertical space to work with between the jamb. But I think that'll work out. The thing to do is to set it plumb on one side and then hang a door there. See how the door sits. Set it plumb on the other side, hang the next door, see how it all comes together, and kind of see if you can do everything temporarily so that you can adjust it as you go. I always use screws, first of all because they're stronger than nails, and second of all because you can always fix them. You can always unscrew something. I have had to do that hanging doors before. So let's get this side done first. Let's get it nice and square and plumb, and see how she goes from there. So I use cedar shims, and this is a great product. If you're going to do any framing, any door installations, window installations, buy yourself a packet of cedar shims. They're between $7 to $10, and you get enough shims to do an entire house type of thing. And this is the thickness that I like. They come in varying thicknesses, but I usually cut them to be just about a couple inches thick. That works really well. Okay, so I'm just setting the first hinge into a position that I think is in good shape as far as being equidistant from one side or the other, and that's pretty good there. Now, we always start off by taking the level off of this corner, right? Off of this edge right here, because that's the edge that's fixed. So is this one for that matter, right? Because that jamb is nailed in. So I'm going to set my laser level now and see if this is on a nice kind of comfortable square vertical edge there to start. And if it is, then I'll screw in those shims in that position. Okay, so I'm going to have you see this laser line here that I've done. Okay, so I'm going to have you see this laser line here that I've done. You can see it's pretty much perfectly right at that top corner. You see how it's kind of splitting the edge there and hitting the corner? So then we go down to the hinge, and it's starting to come in a little bit. So you can see some white space here between the laser line and the edge of the board. Now at the bottom, we lose a full 1/4 inch there. So I'm going to move the bottom over a little bit and see if that changes where that top hinge ends up. Let's see. Okay, so you see how at the bottom it's pretty much right on the edge. Laser is right on the edge of the trim. Whoa, I just went for a spin. Sorry about that. You come up to the top here, and it's definitely right where it has to be up here, because the laser's just splitting the very edge of the jamb here, right? But you can see already at the hinge it's come in about 1/8 of an inch there, right? So I need to move that jamb in 1/8 by adjusting those shims. And when it's in a good spot there, that's when I'm going to screw it in. Now keep in mind, when you screw wood into wood, there is some compression, right? So if I can be out maybe, well, I don't know, 1/16 or so, then the screw will bring it in perfect. That's the plan anyway. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so there's a bit of an adjustment on those shims. They're nice and tight already. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, see, it's still just a touch further out this way than that is, but I think when I put a screw in there, it's going to pull it right in. So let's see. Let's give it a try and see what happens. And again, if you put this screw in and you don't like it, if it pulls it too far, that's not out of the ordinary. You just pull it out and do it again. No big deal. Let's see how it goes. Okay. That's pretty darn good. It is right on the edge now. Look at this. See how the laser is right on the edge of the corner here? So we know that that first hinge is plumbed pretty nicely with the top of the door. Now we need to do the rest, the exact same thing to the next 2 hinges, and that's about as plumb a jamb as you're going to get. Okay, so here's a really good example of why I use screws. I've screwed in the bottom hinge, which got pulled in a lot further than I thought it would. And because of that, you can see the line down here on the laser level starts at the edge, like it's supposed to, but then as you get to the hinge gets sucked in this way, and you see the line actually ends up on the door stopper. You see that? So all I'm going to do is undo that screw, push the shims in a little bit more, and try it again, because we want that line definitely right here on the edge of the board, not over here. It's only a small adjustment, but everything you can do to make it perfectly plumb and square always helps. don't want to lose the shim positions before the screw comes out, so I'm just going to hold them there. Okay. So now I'm just going to push both shims in a little bit more. And that should do it. Let's see how this one goes. Okay, that's a little better, but it's still, 1/16 off. So I'm just going to give it one more try and see if it ends up perfect. Just want to make sure also that the door jamb isn't actually twisting. And it's not, it's still pretty square. That can happen when you're just putting one screw in on one side. Ideally, what you can do to avoid that is remove the door stopper and screw right in the middle. Okay, so one more try. Okay, let's push these in a little more. And again, you're pushing both shims in, not just one. Because if you do just one, then you're not going to be square. I'll show you an illustration of that in a bit. Okay, that's much better. See that? Now almost 100% of that line is sitting on the edge there, which is exactly what we want. Alright, no big deal. Okay, so I've got the first jamb on in very good shape. I'm really happy with it. Shimmed at all three hinges and pretty darn straight, pretty solid. Now I'm going to hang the door on just to see if there's any horrendously obvious abnormalities, stuff that I've missed, anything like that. And I'm going to leave that door on, and I'll probably start to shim the other side but not screw it in and hang that door and see how it goes. A big problem that I'm going to have here is kicking my screws. Big problem that I'm going to have here is the fact that the floor slopes down so much, right? So I'm going to have to lift one side or lower the other side, probably lift this side, and I don't have much room to play with there, so we'll see. If worst case scenario, I could actually cut the bottom of one jamb and lower it. So we'll just see. We'll see what we get. Okay, so first presentation of the door is not bad. I'm not disappointed with it at all. I'm looking at the clearance on the hinge here. It looks pretty good, pretty uniform from top to bottom. Just listening to if there are any major creaks or anything which show that the hinges are stressed out. This hinge took quite a bit to get the pin in, so that's usually a sign that there's a little extra stress on that pin. The other thing you look for is just that the door stay relatively still in position when you set it, right? If the door wants to open or close on its own, it means it's not level. So, and again, that wouldn't be a game breaker for me, but the space is the more important part. Up here I'm not too worried about this space. It's actually a pretty good space right now, but that will be adjusted with, that'll be the last thing we adjust with shims on top. Okay, so now I'm going to get this door jamb going. Those shims are in there, but they're not screwed yet. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side to this side, get it nice and level. I may or may not screw it in. I'll definitely present the door and see how the doors end up, see what adjustments need to be made. Okay, so now we're starting on this side, and again we put the laser level right up into this corner, right? Because it's held by that top jamb, that doesn't move in or out, and that's what you set as your plumb line. Okay, and you can see at the hinge we've already come in quite a ways, and by the bottom we're way out. So that's fine. We'll just adjust and see how it goes. Again, I'm moving both shims, right, an equal distance, because that keeps it nice and square. I'll just show you really quick here. So here's your typical cedar shim or cedar shake. Basically break it in half, and this is what you use to shim the doors. Now what you don't do is you don't put the shims in this way. See how there's a thick end and a thin end, right? You put them in this way. and that way they're square. The movement that you do is square. Now, if your rough in is twisted, then you can put both in on one side to counteract that twist. You follow me? Easy enough principle, I think. And that looks pretty good at that hinge right there. So I might just go ahead and drill that one in. Yeah, I'm going to drill that one in, and then we'll follow that plumb line all the way down and see how it works. Okay. Now here's one thing that I didn't do right now, and I didn't show you on the other side, but this door jamb has to remain flush with the drywall, right? So as you can see, I've messed up here. And I failed to position the jamb so that it's flush. So I've got to undo this screw, move it back to being flush. And that's really important, because if it's not flush on both sides, then you're twisting your doors and they will never close right, or they will never be lined up. And I know that because my contractor did that at my cottage with one of my most critical doors. And once you've done all your finishing, that is very difficult to correct. That's a pain. Alright, so let's do that. Might as well do it at the bottom as well. Much better. Alright, it's flush. And that's the beauty of working with screws. You make a mistake, you correct it right away. Okay, that's it. Now let's see. Yeah, it's held the line perfectly. Look at that. It's right on the corner there. It's right on the corner here. So now we do the same for the bottom, middle, and we hang the door, and it's the next moment of truth. Now one thing that I could have done, and should have done, and will do now, is check for square. Because this jamb is right in the position it needs to be now, although it's not completely screwed in. And I'm going to ultimately check by setting up the door, but I should have a look now. And man, that is pretty darn good. Yeah, there's no spaces there whatsoever. It's very square. I'm just going to check the other side as well. Wow, it's very good too. So, I mean, that's really good information as far as the doors fitting right, but it still doesn't guarantee you that the doors are going to work. But we'll see. I'm going to finish these two hinges on this side, and then we'll hang the door for the second and possibly last moment of truth. So we've come to the second moment of truth now. It's time to hang the second door. And I'm feeling relatively confident, which is a strange feeling for me. I'm usually pretty pessimistic when it comes to this stuff. But it all came together really nicely. And it seems like it's very plumb and very square. But no matter how much it seems like it is, there's always little adjustments. Doors are really fine and really finicky. And we'll set it up and see what adjustments we need to make from here on in. One thing is, remember to put the hinge pins all the way in, because even just not having the very bottom of the hinge lined up can make the doors go wonky. Alright, let's see what we got here. Okay, so they're touching at the top. Okay, so we have a look at it. It's not bad, but it's not usable yet. If you look at the bottom we've got about, a little more than an eighth, maybe what's up from 1/8? I don't know, 2-3 millimeters. Pretty good space going up, but then it touches at the top. So now the thing is, whatever you do to one side of the hinge affects the bottom as well. So if you bring the top back, it'll have the effect of bringing the bottom out, right? So that's what we'll do, because the side, if you look at the side here, this space here on the hinge, it's good, but it's much tighter than this space up here. See that? See how that space is much more open? So I'm going to take a look at this hinge and just see if the hinge itself can go in, before I do anything else. But this definitely has to go that away. Maybe it's the secret is in the hinge there. Let's have a look. Okay, so what I found is that this side of the hinge is nicely sunk. This side is not so. That is, but this side sticks out a good 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to just start by trying to tighten up these screws. The screws are also, the heads are not perfectly flush. I don't know if you can see that, probably not, but if these heads are not flush, that opens up the space of the hinge. So I'm going to try and sink these screws a little more. If they don't sink in more, or if they strip, which they have the tendency to do, I'm just going to remove this part of the hinge, use the chisel just to bring it in a little further, and then we'll retry the door and see if that makes a difference. I'm going to check all the hinges the same way, but that seems to be a problem right there. Okay, so this is what I determined here. Every screw on this side of the hinge is stripped completely, and the hinge itself is sticking out. Poor manufacturing job. This drives me crazy. This is why we rookies buy pre-hung doors and pay more so that the pros do it. But the pros do a crappy job like this, it falls on you to have to fix it, or you'll never get your door to sit right. So I'm going to pull out the chisel. I'm going to chisel that in a bit. I'm going to fill in the holes with slivers and glue, and try to put the screws back in nice and straight so that they're flush. Look at this. See, this screw is not flush at all, and that hits on the other screw here and creates that wide hinge space that is part of our problem. So bad manufacturer. I'm going to flame the manufacturer at the end of this video. It's flush here, but it's still sticking out at the bottom here, so I'll remove a little more from here. So the hinge is sitting better, and I went ahead and did this. I just cut a few slivers off of 2x4, and I'll drop some glue on them, slide them in the old holes, hammer them in, chisel them flat, and then we put the new screws on, and we'll see how it works. The interesting thing is that the other mistake that was made by these door manufacturers or door resellers is that they gave me all the wrong hinges. These hinges were all supposed to be black. So something that I'm going to have to do once I get everything done is replace all the hinges. So I decided to replace this one already, and I'm going to put a black hinge on here. Okay, so there's one. Two. Three. So again, all this does is it gives the screws extra grip, because every time you tighten and loosen a screw, you lose a certain percentage of strength. And with hinges, especially these ones that were stripped, you really need all the grip strength you can get. So just tap them in, and it's no biggie if some of it sticks out. It'll just break on its own, and then you just clean it up with the chisel. You don't even need to. Yeah, we will just pass the chisel over to make sure that they're not sticking up. Alright, so we'll put the new hinge on, and we'll put the screws on. And here it's really important to try to put the screws in perfectly straight and perfectly flush, because if you don't, then the heads of the screws hit each other and they don't let you have a nice flat even finish. Sits, it's nice, it's good. Flush or slightly recessed. See, it's nice and tight, it stays in there nicely. Now I just got to make sure I put in these screws nice and straight. I'm going to straighten out this door. It's sitting better than it was before. So let's hang the door again and see where it ends up. Okay, so there's the new hinge, and you can see that the space between, it doesn't look very, okay, yeah, you can see that the space is much better now. It's much more even from top to bottom. It is still a little further, the space is still a little more closed at the bottom than at the top, you see? But that's as good as that hinge is going to get it without doing some more sinking of the head and hinge, some more carpentry. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just remove these shims and just move them a little further back so that this door just moves a little out that way. It did improve it. They're just barely touching. See? Set this door in place. This door is just barely touching it at the top. Bottom clearance is still good. So let's move it a little bit and see what happens. Okay, so that fixed it. I moved this shim back a bit. I moved the shims out so I could move the door jamb over a bit. I did the same with this one, and I did the same with the middle one as well, just to give us the nice proper space in the middle. Now you can see the space is very uniform, but a 1/4 inch, not quite, all the way top to bottom. The doors don't hit. So I'm going to put 3 more shims up top here, but just to have them so that there is absolutely no space and this can't move. You see how it moves there? I'm happy with the distance right now between the doors and that top jamb, so I'm not going to move the jamb at all. I'm just going to put the shims in so that the jamb won't move on its own. And then I'll put in the little stopper at the top so the doors cannot go past that point. And these doors are installed. A couple of dummy doorknobs there, installed by a dummy, and that's it. So that's the installation of these doors. And there was a bit of a challenge, which was that that these hinges weren't done well. I ordered these doors from a company called Northfield in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. I never slag a company, but here are the facts. I put in this order over the phone after 3 phone calls with them just to try and make sure I had the right doors and the right hardware and everything. I went to pick them up after about 10 days or so, and as soon as they brought the stuff out, I noticed the hardware was all wrong. It was supposed to be all black hinges and handles, and they gave me all silver, right? And then I noticed the doors were wrong. These doors are supposed to not be beveled. There's a slight bevel to this. It should be 90 degrees. And then on top of that, as you saw, the workmanship they did on the doors is not that great. So look into the doors that you get, and hopefully you get a good quality, because it's pretty critical. I had to, that added about 45 minutes to the job here to get that one hinge on. Not only that, but now I've got one black hinge and a bunch of silver hinges, which I will paint the door. The doors are primed only, so I'll paint the doors with the old hinges on, then replace them out with the new hinges. So, and that's a pain, because every time you pull out a screw, the new screw becomes weaker. So I'll have to basically sliver every screw hole that I put in there. And you can use just toothpicks or stuff like that and a bit of glue, and that should work fine. So that's hanging a double door. It's my first time doing it, and it worked all right. I'm very happy with the result. The closet looks great, and I just need to do some drywall now. Sounds like somebody's at the door, so I'll go get that. I'll do some drywall. I'll do a drywall tutorial, and maybe that's it. Thanks for joining me at Frank's DIY and Homeowner Help.